back. So we are making this peacock painting in Madhubani style. So let's add some more details. Today we are painting the flowers and the background. So let's begin. We had made sure that all our previous artwork, all our paint is nicely dried up before we start on painting the flowers today. So we're going to start with the flowers, then we're going to paint the leaves. This is the salmon pink color that I'm using. You can either paint the flowers a lighter shade and do a highlight with a darker shade. I prefer it doing the other way. I prefer it painting the dark shade and then highlighting it with a lighter pink. For the leaves, we are going to use absolutely a new shade of green, which is going to be a sap green color. So these pink lotus flowers are inspired by pitch pie painting. So you will notice that every folk art have inspiration from other art forms also. It's always nice to add two art forms and create something new. Let's add color to this one now. So you can see this salmon pink color is looking absolutely beautiful. It's highlighting the entire painting now. Once we're done with the salmon pink, we're going to use the sap green color to paint the lotus leaves. Since we have already used the dark shade of green for the peacock, now we are going to use a different shade of green for the leaves. Some of them I'm going to paint as lotus buds. So you will notice that lotus buds have a very peculiar shape. They're very different from normal leaves. This is the view that we get when we look the lotus leaves from a side. I'm not adding too much of water, just very little amount of water. I want a good thick shade of pink for my lotus flowers. Since I have created the lines before, so I'm going to be very careful while painting this. I'm going to try and put my color inside my outline. Let's outline first and then fill in the color. So now you can see these peacocks are just around all the lotus flowers that we have created. So we are painting these flowers using Peachwai style. So you will see a lot of lotus flowers, especially in Peachwai art. Just one of it I'm going to color as a bud. Next we're going to do is green leaves. So we are adding a lot of color to this sheet. So you can see the shade of pink, different shades of green, orange, different shades of blue, a shade of red, a shade of brown in the legs, and still more shades to go. Anybody in the would like to know, ask any question, feel free to ask me. You can send me a comment or a message. If you have any questions in mind regarding this art form, any other art form, now let's move on to the next color, which is going to be a shade of sap green color. This is a very royal green color. It comes out beautifully. Not adding too much water again, just a little bit. Let's start from here. Make sure wherever you're placing your hand, the paint should be dry. So this is a sap green color by Fevicryl. This paint needs a good thick amount of coat because this paint becomes a little patchy if you do it light a coat. Always outline and then fill in the color. It's easier. Here we are adding more of green. If you want, you can add 2 shades of green, a shade of lighter green and a shade of dark green. Usually light on the bigger portion, which is the bottom portion. And when you see a leaf, it is like usually it's darker on the surface and lighter on the base. So you can see so many shades of green. One is a turquoise green that I've done on the peacock. Then this is a dark green color, and now this is the sap green color that I'm adding. Any other color combination you would like me to add? I'm going to color the base yellow. I think this is one of the most beautiful color. It comes out really very nice and it's very subtle also. It's not very vibrant. So it gives a very positive feel. It gives a very sunshine feel. I'll first outline and then fill in the color. So here we are. Now let's just finish the top part. You have to be a little careful while doing this one because my entire paint is still wet. And here we are. Now let's add another beautiful shade, which is going to be, let's add a little bit more of orange into the main part because we're going to color the background yellow. So I don't want to add more yellow to this. So let's add a little bit of orange. Or if you want, you can add a shade of blue also. I wanted to give it a little lighter look. So maybe we'll go with the orange right now. Again, very carefully, just inside this pattern, leaving the main pattern and filling the color in the base. It's always very nice to work on the minute details. Here we are. Let's move on to the other side. Carefully, since this is paint, we don't want to miss out anything or color anything wrong. Here we are. Isn't the peacock looking absolutely colorful now? Now here comes the tricky part. Now we have to color the base. So before we color the base, we are going to use a yellow color for the base. And it's up to you which brush you want to use. You want to use a round circular brush, or if you want to go for a broad brush. I'm going to start with the broad one. I'm going to try and fill in the main places, and then I'm going to take a thin brush and then fill in the details. So let's start. As we start, again, be very careful not to put your color anywhere else. Before you start any color, make sure your previous coats are completely dried up, else there are good possibility or chances that you might smudge both the colors and both the colors get mixed up. The double line you see here is something which is very important in a Madhubani painting. Whenever you're using a broad brush, be careful, especially on the corners. Whenever you feel that there are chances, Just leave it then and there and go for a round brush. You can use two brushes simultaneously. It's always nice to see a combination of blue and green, and of course yellow to add on. For me, yellow just adds up that sunshine to everything. We have to be careful on the corners. I'm not adding too much of water, otherwise the paint will become a little patchy. Painting the peacock and especially the borders is tough. Let's color the in between surface, which is very important. Drop in a heart if you like this. It's always nice to see people, watching this video, showing their love. Go for a simple style. I have done a lot of simple motifs also, where I have done one single pattern at a time, maybe only the bird or only the elephant or only the fish. Start making with that, and I'm sure it will be very soon that you can make this entire artwork. After this, I'm going to take a round brush and then fill in the gaps. That will be a little more quick. Sometimes I wonder how people in the olden times used to create such beautiful art with perfection, with so limited resources. We are lucky we have different kinds of paints, we have different kinds of brushes. But they first used to create the colors and then paint. So it must be so much tough for them. and yet all their artwork was bang on, portraying exactly what they wanted to show. So now it's time for us to change brushes. Now let's move on to our little round brush and quickly add and give it the final look. Let's start from here. Color the corners first. Isn't the painting looking very vivacious now with such bright yellow color? When we see the first look white, we feel it's beautiful. When we start adding colors, we think, oh, we couldn't have imagined it to be more beautiful. Now when we have colored the base, it looks even more beautiful. So it's always different stages of how we admire the artwork. Even when it was black and white, it was complete, but when we started adding colors to the peacock, it was still complete. Then we colored the flowers, it was still very complete, and now with the background, it's even more complete. If you like this bright yellow color, drop in a yellow heart in the comment section below. We're gonna first complete the base and then move on to the top. First outline and then, especially where there is very little place, for example in between the flowers. Just a little more base on the bottom before we move on to the top of our sheet. carefully on the corners. Here we are. This is how it's going to look, the bright yellow color. Now let's move on to the top. I'm going to just switch on my sheet. I'm going to just rotate it upside down. A little bit of water and the yellow color to add the magic. It's always nice to paint it like this way, because if you paint the flowers first and then, like, on top, if you color the base and then try and color the flowers, sometimes that yellow effect will not go properly. So it's better that we do the flowers first and then do the background. For these lines, for the stems, I'm going to come back and paint them with black color. Though they are done with waterproof ink, they're quite visible. We'll check out if we need to, then we'll come back and do it. Keeping a slight rough sheet at the bottom of your sheet is very, very important. Keep your hand very, very safely on the dry sheet only. In the comment section, you will find in the description a lot more details about this artwork, where it was originated, how this is done, which region it is done, which all patterns do you find, what are the small tricks and techniques. So it was a good decision to do the yellow color. This is the yellow chrome color that I'm doing. This has this vibrant shade of yellow. It's entirely up to you. You could have You can choose your own shade. You can even use a sky blue color to give it a sky look. Spend that extra minute when you're working on the details. And we are nearly done with our background. So here this is the final yellow look. I hope you had a beautiful time learning this one. Do follow for more. See you in the next video.